The transition from book to film is an arduous one, a process that one might imagine leaves creators feeling like they're walking on eggshells around book fans. You've got casting. It must be perfect not just to make the film sustainable in and of itself, as casting is half the battle for any performance work, but also capture the author's vision, knowing that each reader has slightly different perspectives. There's the screenwriting and script writing process. It's impossible to precisely capture what the book gives. How do the writers keep as much of the general feel while also inevitably needing to cut parts for the sake of time and clarity? Movies move differently than books and operate with different beats. And of course, somehow stay true to the author's intents. That's just naming two aspects of the large project that is cinema creation. The creators of the film adaptation of the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, have a lot to live up to. And in many regards, I think they've already failed. Hey y'all, I'm the Geek Apprentice and I'm starting Hunger Games month a little bit early this year as I've got a lot to talk about and discuss with the upcoming release of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, I left that intro on a pretty negative note, I know, and I'm gonna try not to be negative throughout this entire video, coming across as if I already hate the film, because quite the opposite, I'm pretty excited. However, I cannot deny that from what I've seen, they've already made some pretty clear mistakes. Will they affect the movie as a whole? Well, I hope not, but what are these issues anyway? Are they really that big of a deal? Let's go through them one by one. To preface, 100% of these points are casting related, as all we have right now is 2 trailers and the IMDb casting list. That doesn't necessarily mean the issues are with the actors themselves as much as the direction being taken based on choosing them. Let's begin. Beginning with something relatively minor, we have the daughter of the mayor of District 12, Mayfair Lipp. Explicitly described in the books as being a redhead, the actor is brunette. Not too bad though, right? As of recording this video, we've not seen any footage of her in the film, so for all we know, they dye her hair. But what if they don't? Many may think this is such a silly thing to gripe about, but if casting directors or those in charge of hair and makeup cannot be trusted with the simplest task of she's a redhead, which is stated again explicitly in the books, then they might be messing up other parts as well. I'm just saying, when an author gives explicit descriptions of a character, especially in terms of look, those demands ought to be met. I can't imagine it's that difficult to meet those expectations. He who is not trustworthy in small matters is not trustworthy in large matters either. My issue with Clemensia's casting choice is along the same lines as Mayfair Lipp, except this one isn't so easily changed. On page 147, Clemensia is described as having golden brown skin. This actress does not have golden brown skin. Now, does that mean she'll be terrible at the role? Of course not. But it is another example of casting directors not paying attention to details that are so easy to get correct, or paying attention but flat out ignoring it. I don't know why, but I fully expected all of the Covey to resemble Katniss and Gale. However, that said, Snow does remark on page 369 that the Covey varied in complexion, hair, and features. So Maude Ivory being cast as someone who looks more like me is a non-issue, right? Well, I've gone back and forth on this. It is my personal theory and headcanon that Maude Ivory is the ancestor to Katniss. Her singing voice and the fact that she memorizes music so quickly are key. Katniss's father kept music alive in their home for a short while. The Covey were responsible for any music in District 12, until a new commander made that cease to be. So this stands to reason alongside the fact that both Katniss and her father could memorize melodies as easily as Maude Ivory did. I guess when I say they have her casted as looking like me, I ought to say looking like Prim. For a moment I thought, oh that's fine, because Katniss's mom has that look. But Maude Ivory, if she is an ancestor Katniss in the way she's theorized to be, would be from her father's side, not her mother's. In the end, this still isn't really an issue though, is it? Katniss looks like her father, and Prim looks like her mother, and the two are quite different from one another in looks, so the same thing could have occurred with Maude Ivory. She already lives in the seam, so it's logical to imagine that she marries a coal miner who resembles more of Katniss's features, and they have a son that ends up being Katniss's father. So this casting choice only bothered me upon first glance, but after some consideration, It works. But I chose to leave it on this list just in case anyone else had the same thoughts I did. Okay, I actually love this casting choice. For one thing, even though I know there have been some issues with him recently, you can't really go wrong with Peter Dinklage. And for another, something about Casca's personality and Peter's demeanor and style of acting is just perfect. So why mention this as a mistake? On page 199, Casca Highbottom is in a live interview with Lucky Flickerman. Here's a bit of that conversation. "But surely you're not comparing our children to theirs," asked Lucky. "One look tells you ours are the superior breed. One look tells you ours have more food, nicer clothing, and better dental care," said Dean Highbottom. "Assuming anything more, physical, mental, or especially moral superiority, would be a mistake. That sort of hubris almost finished us off in the war." This talk from Lucky about being the superior breed must be the mindset of most in the capital. That people in the districts are a subclass of human for a myriad of reasons. With this warped perspective they have, wouldn't you think if Casca Highbottom looked the way he got casted, they would take issue with that? View him as lesser? I mean, the way Lucky spoke is eerily reminiscent of a certain mindset a certain group of people had during a certain world war. But perhaps this is not at all what Lucky is referring to. And you know what? I'm willing to overlook that, even if it is, because this casting choice is just too perfect and works too well for me to take issue with. You'd think I'd save the cream of the crop for last, but you'd be wrong. I saved Coriolanus Snow until close to the end, yes, because he is the lead after all. But actually, other than one minor issue out of the actor's control, so far, he's perfect. His look, mannerism, speech, just exactly how you portray the narcissistic control freak that is young Corio. As I said, my issue is minor, but his hair, it's not curly enough, and that was a big talking point in the book. It's currently wavy. That's it, that's my issue, and it's with the hairdressing department yet again. But this isn't the last time curly hair will be brought up. Lucy Gray Baird, the beloved favorite of the book. We first thought she was crazy, but by the end we realized she's just a young woman, a young girl, really, trying to enjoy her music and family. She just wants her freedom. How could they get this wrong? First of all, getting the trivial out of the way, I don't think her hair is curly enough either. She's described many times as having curly hair, and yet what we're seeing is straight to wavy to really wavy. This is curly hair, okay? Well, at least one type of it. I will say though, the second trailer, her hair did seem a little bit curlier in some shots, and I recognize she probably doesn't have product to make it super curly, but it doesn't have to be sleek and shiny, but it should be curlier in my opinion. Next is the way she bows. It doesn't seem accurate to the book, and too clearly meant to mimic Katniss. It's just weird. She's a performer, and a good one at that. I don't think she'd bow the same way Katniss does later in the trilogy. It just looked weird, and I don't know, I expected it to be cutesier. Not super cutesy, but certainly not mimicking Katniss 100%. A stretched opinion, but that dress is not at all how I imagined it. So much for all the colors. There's some, not much. It's passable, I suppose. Moving on, her speech. You cannot tell me the Covey don't have southern accents. You can't. If you read how they talk, their phrases, their metaphors, it screams Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Come on. I talk closer to how she sounds, and I only have a Florida southern accent, although my family is from Alabama, so I guess that kind of works. But I worked very hard to get rid of the accent when I was in college because I was a theater major and you can't have a southern accent for everything. But, old habits die hard. Now, I did see quite a number of comments on my reaction video for the second trailer saying that what she does have is an Appalachian accent. Appalachian? I'm going to end up using those interchangeably. I'm so sorry. I'm not 100% sure which one it is. I thought that was interesting, and I didn't know what that sounded like, so I looked it up. I still don't hear it. But even if that's what she's doing, that accent doesn't make sense. Now, an Appalachian accent does make sense for District 12 itself, as if you've seen the map of Panem that Susan Collins made, overlaying the United States as we know it, then you see that District 12 is where North Carolina is. So yes, that stands to reason, but not for the Covey. Now, I'm not concerned with the fact that we didn't hear these accents in the trilogy movies, especially as that wasn't made clear and had been so long that those accents probably died out, and that was the assumption, so it didn't really matter. But even if the District 12 of the prequel still has citizens with this Appalachian accent, the Covey are not District 12. How many times has that been said in the book that she is not district? The Covey are not district. Maude Ivory maybe would pick up on the accent, but you'll notice that the phrases that the Covey are using, the metaphors that specifically Lucy Gray uses, you don't really hear those from people in District 12. At least, not in the trilogy. We don't interact with too many people from District 12 itself, outside of the Covey. So my point still stands that even if she has an Appalachian accent, and that's what the actress, not Renee, idiot, Rachel Zegler is doing, it still doesn't make sense because Lucy Gray Baird and the Covey are not district. The phrases they are using are not ones you hear people in District 12 saying, at least as far as I can recall, and it's very clearly more of an Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee Southern accent. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be super duper twangy. I'm not asking for an accent like this. Not in the slightest. But take her line, and what exactly does my mentor do for me? She says it's sounding so stinking proper. And again, I don't hear the Appalachian accent, but as I'm beating a dead horse, she wouldn't have that accent anyway. Would it be that hard to have an accent along the lines of, and what exactly does my mentor do for me? It could be a proper Southern. It could be a Southern belle. I don't know. But anything more than what she's giving would make 10 times more sense. I'm clearly not bothered by this at all. I've made my point very clear, even if you disagree with it, so I'm gonna move on. My final issue I want to be careful with, but the actress. Her comments about another role she's playing have really soured my view of her, especially when it comes to her motivation for acting. Now, her singing voice, that's totally a different level because that is beautiful. I wasn't sure after seeing the second trailer if that was actually her voice. Then I looked it up and it was. Oh my gosh, her singing voice is amazing. So they got that chef's kiss 100% perfect. But going back to what I was talking about, she basically hates the story and character she's playing in this other film, so I can't imagine she's going to portray it well. Not that any of those films have been good in the slightest. The writing and the motivation for the films in general have all been utter garbage, but it still makes me worried for this one because her motivations are not good. Her attitude towards the role suggests she doesn't care about authenticity and doesn't see the beauty in more gentle female characters. Female characters can be strong in other areas than just kicking butt and being a leader, being a girl boss. I am so sick of that stuff. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. That's how I feel. There is so much strength in feminine beauty, gentleness, motherly nature, and the like. She doesn't seem to care about that at all. Maybe I'm going too far. Maybe she'll do this role wonderfully, aside from not having a proper Southern accent, and I'll view her participation the way I did Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss. Can't stand the actress, but was undeniably pretty good in the role, even if I think someone else maybe could have done it better. I definitely haven't seen a ton of screen time from the film, just the one trailer, so there's plenty of time for me to change my mind. Overall, with all of this said, I'm still actually quite excited for the film, even with these hiccups or full-on mistakes that I see. No film adaptation is perfect. None can be 100% accurate to the book because it's not a book. It's a film. It's a different way of receiving a story. It just has to do the book justice. And I'm certainly still holding out a lot of hope as the film is projected to be quite lengthy. And that's a good thing. That's a big thumbs up from me because the book was pretty lengthy. In the end, I can't fully commentate on everything or give my full views until November 17th when we finally see this most anticipated film. Thank you all for watching this video. Let me know in the comments section just how excited you are to see this prequel film adaptation and which character you're most looking forward to seeing how they portray. For me, it's Tigress. And a little bit of Maude Ivory. I hope she's as cute as she was in the book. If you'd like to support the channel, I'd appreciate a thumbs up on the video, joining the geekdom by subscribing, maybe even consider checking out my merch or my Patreon. Speaking of, thank you so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially those in the highly and night tier like Joking Batman, Geek Mom, Lorulian Sheep, and McToppler. Y'all are the best. But anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching and may the odds be ever in your favor.